The story takes place in a small village in America, where a woman gives birth to a strange child. This child is not only unusual, but also possesses extraordinary powers. Doctors declared that the child's condition was incurable. Despite this, the parents decided to raise him. As time passed, the boy remained different from other kids his age. Other children would tease and bully him, but one girl stepped forward to be his friend. Seeing this, the other kids started harassing her as well. Enraged, the boy killed one of the children. When his parents learned of the incident, they were terrified and locked him away in the basement. There, the boy discovered that another child had already been imprisoned in the same basement. They began communicating by passing notes under the door and soon became close friends. But this peace didn't last long. When the villagers found out about the murder, they surrounded the boy's house. The parents, knowing their son had done wrong, did not attempt to justify his actions. The villagers became so furious that they broke the windows and set the house on fire. As the house burned, the parents were engulfed in flames and perished. The boy desperately tried to save his friend, but the basement door wouldn't open. When he finally managed to escape, he saw that the house had been reduced to ruins. His parents were nowhere to be found, and his body had been burned by the fire. So he ran toward the lake near the village. When the villagers chased him to the lake, they saw that he had drowned. But suddenly, a mysterious mist began to rise from the lake, frightening the villagers. They never found his body, but due to his extraordinary powers, he became known as Popeye Boy. 15 years later, 3 social media influencers came to the lake to make a video. They had been creating content for months, but their videos weren't getting much response. So they decided to capitalize on the legend of Popeye. A faint mist began to rise over the lake. They decided that once the mist thickened, they would shoot some scary content. That night, while one of the team's girls was recording a video, she noticed a shadow on the camera and got scared. Meanwhile, her 2 companions moved toward an old basement, but the frightened girl stayed near the lake. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed behind her. The next moment, Popeye crushed her so hard that her skull shattered completely. The 2 companions inside the basement soon met the same fate. Popeye slammed one straight into the wall, killing him instantly, and crushed the other's head with his hands. After this, Popeye suddenly realized that his old friend was still trapped in the basement. The friend pushed an old piece of paper under the door. Now the story shifts to a new girl, Tara, and her home. This was the same house where Popeye's family once lived. Tara's parents had bought the land but decided not to live there due to strange occurrences. However, Tara was very interested in the place. She secretly took the house key and planned to go there with her friends. An old house, now in a dilapidated state, was about to witness a terrifying night. A brave team was about to enter this mysterious house. And among them, Kara was extremely excited about this thrilling journey. The journey was long, about 12 hours. As they entered the forest, Tara and her boyfriend's car barely avoided hitting a man who suddenly appeared in front of them. When the man heard that they were heading toward that haunted house, he was shocked. He warned them that if they valued their lives, they should not make the mistake of going there. However, they ignored his warning and continued on their way. Finally, they reached their destination. From the outside, the house looked old and eerie, but Tara and her father had it cleaned every month, so the interior was quite neat. However, there was one problem. There was no mobile network inside the house. Meanwhile, hidden in the dark corners of the same house, a dangerous and powerful man known as Popeye had already sensed this new activity. He smiled with an eerie delight. As night fell, the same man who had warned Tara and her friends was fishing by the lake when suddenly a mysterious mist began to rise from the water. He realized that it was his last night, and at that very moment, a gigantic shadow emerged behind him. Popeye grabbed him with iron chains, and within seconds his breath stopped. Meanwhile, Tara and her friends were busy joking and laughing. On the other hand, Tara's parents were planning to sell the house. Just then, a neighbor came running, holding a newspaper. The news printed in the paper revealed that some time ago, 3 social media influencers had mysteriously died in this very house. Now, worried for their children's safety, Tara's parents began to feel uneasy. However, Tara's mother suggested that they would make a decision in the morning. Suddenly, there was a loud knock. The door opened, and a strange, eerie-looking girl entered. Her face was terrifying, and fear was evident in her eyes. She warned them, "If you want to stay alive, leave this house immediately." But Tara and her friends dismissed her as crazy and threw her out. The night grew darker. One of them, a girl named Sky, was relaxing in the hot water outside. Suddenly, a thick fog began to spread all around. Sky ignored it and continued to relax. But just then, Popeye appeared behind her and held her underwater until she stopped moving. Suddenly, the same eerie girl appeared next to her. Was she the same friend who had been locked in the basement years ago? By morning, the rest of the friends realized that one of them was missing. They assumed she had left out of fear, and no one seemed to care. Meanwhile, Max was wandering in the jungle when he noticed the mysterious fog growing denser. Then by the lake, he saw a boat with its doors open. Out of curiosity, he stepped inside. But inside, there was a strong smell of blood. If only he could understand that this boat had already become a house of death. Suddenly, Poppy pounced on him. He pulled out Max's spine and separated his skull in one swift motion. On the other hand, Tara's parents realized that the key to their house was missing. They understood that their children were there and decided to call the police. Meanwhile, a fight broke out between Nick and Donna, and in anger, Donna stormed out of the room. Nick decided to stay in the room. Just then, he heard the sound of glass shattering. The next moment, a box was thrown inside. Thick smoke began to rise from it. Suddenly, a dark shadow emerged from the corner and rushed towards him. It was Poppy. Nick tried to run, but Poppy broke his hand in an instant. The room was filled with smoke, and before Nick could understand anything, the demon grabbed his head and smashed it against the sharp nails on the wall. A strange satisfaction gleamed in Poppy's eyes. Meanwhile, Donna, in a panic, sat in her car and tried to escape, but she soon realized that someone had slashed the tires. She suspected that it could be one of Nick's pranks. Angrily, she returned to the room, but upon reaching there, her world shattered. Nick was no longer alive. She sat in the corner, crying uncontrollably. Meanwhile, Tara and her friends set out to find the other missing people. That's when Tara found a burnt photograph on the ground, in which her mother was also visible. Donna, terrified, ran into the forest, but Poppy was right behind her. She covered her mouth with her hand to prevent any sound from escaping. As soon as she thought Poppy had gone in another direction, she tried to slowly make her way out, but she got caught in a trap, and her scream echoed through the jungle. Hearing this, Popeye arrived and ran the grass-cutting machine over his legs, causing his death. On the other hand, the three friends started running as soon as they heard the scream, but fear kept them from moving forward. While running, Kathy slipped and fell, and Popeye rushed toward her. But just then, Tara's parents and neighbors arrived at the scene. However, due to the dense fog in the jungle, they crashed into a tree. The sound of the collision caught Popeye's attention, giving Kathy a chance to escape. At that moment, Tara's father realized that his wife was hiding something. Meanwhile, Popeye grabbed a neighbor with an iron chain, and within moments his breath stopped. Tara's father, George, tried to appear brave and signaled for a fight. Popeye threw aside the iron chain as if ready for a man-to-man battle. But instead, George grabbed his wife, Laura's, hand and ran away. On the other hand, Kathy saw a broken-down car. She tried to start it, but the engine was faulty. Before she could do anything else, Popeye appeared in front of her. Out of fear, Kathy screamed so loudly that she sounded like a sea creature. Popeye lifted the entire car and flipped it over. The fuel spilled onto the ground. He then lit a matchstick, triggering a massive explosion. The four people approaching from behind saw this and ran away. They returned to the house where Tara asked her mother, "Who exactly is Popeye?" Tara's mother replied, "He was once my student." But a week after his death, the villagers decided that the land of this old house would be distributed among families based on their names' alphabetical order, so it could be managed properly. This time the rights went to Laura. Tara was the same girl who had helped a mysterious man years ago, whom the villagers called Popeye. But for her safety, her mother incited the villagers, and they set Popeye's house on fire. Out of fear, Tara's mother, Laura, later left the village. But now the past has returned. Meanwhile, a girl suddenly appeared, and without any hesitation, attacked Laura. Then she tried to kill Tara's father, George. In reality, that girl was none other than Popeye's elder sister. Since childhood, she had been a victim of parental discrimination and hatred. She was locked in a dark basement. Just then, Tara's boyfriend rushed in and started attacking her with an iron pan. But the girl was furious. She grabbed him and slammed him to the ground. That's when Tara had an idea. She picked up a can of petrol nearby and poured it all over the girl. She then tried to escape with her injured mother. But the girl wasn't going to give up so easily. She quickly chased after Tara, grabbed her by the hair, and slammed her to the ground. Then she tightly gripped Tara's neck. Dylan couldn't bear to see this. He shouted loudly to distract the girl, and in the next moment, he threw the lighter in his hand towards her. The petrol-soaked girl instantly caught fire. Tara and Dylan thought it was all over, but as soon as they turned around, they saw that Popeye had captured Tara's mother. Seeing his sister burn in the flames, Popeye became even more enraged. His eyes were filled with bloodlust. In a fit of rage, he mercilessly killed Tara's mother. Now his next target was Dylan. Blinded by fury, he began to brutally attack Dylan's head. Just then, Tara's eyes fell on a grass-cutting machine nearby. She immediately turned on its light. As soon as the bright light hit Popeye, he stopped for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, Dylan wrapped a metal chain around his leg. As soon as he fell to the ground, Tara started the grass-cutting machine, and in an instant, Popeye disappeared forever. The thick fog that had engulfed the jungle also began to lift slowly. By morning, everything seemed normal again. Supporting each other, Tara and Dylan started to leave. Before going, Tara picked up the key to the house and threw it into the nearby lake. But as soon as they turned around, they saw the same key back on the shore. Perhaps this story wasn't over yet,